How to hold space for your child's emotions when you feel burnt out and overwhelmed yourself. So, the thing here is if we want to hold the capacity and the amount of space for our children when they're having the big emotions, and when I say big emotions, I mean the big anger outbursts, the meltdown on the floor in the middle of the supermarket, or some kind of emotion that is a lower frequency on the vibrational scale. The only way that you can possibly alchemize that is yourself to be in the emotion and the space of the unconditional love, which is the neutral space. If you come at them from a space of anger or resentment yourself, then that is only going to it's like a magnet, it's going to push you both apart, whether that is through them screaming more and crying more and not feeling heard, not feeling understood, and then you're feeling like you're really overwhelmed and that you feel like you're not doing a good enough job and that they're going to end up like this, and this, and then the mind goes into overdrive. You have to alchemize from a space of inner unconditional love, and that means getting into your own inside space first. And when you move into your own inside space first, and you feel that peace and you feel that unconditional love regardless of what's going on outside with them, then you can have that compassion and you can recognize that they are having this emotion because of whatever reason. It doesn't really matter, the reason's irrelevant. And once you access that inner space, you just know what to do from that space in that moment. So when you are then in that space, I like to call it the holding and being held. So if your child is in a space where they feel like they need to be held, and you're in a space where you feel like you need to be held because you're holding your kids, maybe possibly your partner, or your money situation, your job, your health and your own well-being, you're trying to hold all of these things, and you feel that you're not being held within that yourself and the structure within that is wobbly, then when everything bursts and it explodes and your child displays these kinds of emotions such as a meltdown or anger outburst, it is far much easier to meet them with, I feel unheld too, I can't possibly hold you, rah, and then shout at them or possibly ignore them or just be like, why is this happening again, and go in that cycle of the frustration round and round and round and round. When you are in the space of neutrality and conditional love, recognizing that this means nothing about them, it means nothing about you and how you parent, it means nothing about the situation, then you can come into that space of alignment and know that their nervous system within their body is having a hard time right now, and that needs to be met with love. Whether that is them asking you to give them space and holding that space for them, or whether it's them asking you to hold them physically and hold them. And they will switch very quickly between the two. One minute they'll say, no, get away from me. And then the next second they'll be running to you crying. And that's okay, because when you are in the space of unconditional love and you're soul aligned and you're being present, then you can easily flow between those two movements. So when they say, I don't want you to hold me physically, but I want you to hold the space for me right now, you're able to do that for them. And then they'll switch and say, I want you to hold me physically right now and hold the space for me in this moment too. And you're able to do that when you are in the soul alignment space and when you feel like your cup is overflowing too. When you feel like you're depleted and overwhelmed and you're in that hyper alert, anxious space and just waiting for something to go wrong, it's almost like, you know, when you tidy the house and everything's really perfect and then one thing just knocks off the shelf and you're just like, oh, I've just spent all day doing that, oh my god. It's kind of like that feeling, except it's like magnified 10, 100 times over until you just feel like, why, like, what is it that I'm doing wrong? And we can start internalizing that to mean something about us, or we can start internalizing it to mean like something about our child, like why are they just not like any other child? Why won't they just do as they're told? Why won't they just do what I've asked for once? Why do they have to be like this? And we can start going into all of these mind constructs that are belief patterns that we have accrued like globally over the years, and conditioning that we are meant to be like, and that's not our true natural state. It's not who we are, it's not our truth, it's not our purity, it's certainly not where children operate from, ever, 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 ever. They always come from that space of soul, of the purity, of the pure love, of the light. That's where we're born from, and that's the only space that they operate from. So if you want to meet them on that level, you have to go to that space within yourself. That's really it. You have to access that space. And once you move into that space and recognize that actually in the quantum realm and the scientific and quantum physics side of this is that the whole entire universe was birthed from the singularity space. So every single thing within the universe came from the same source. So everything within the universe has the same undercurrent running through it, which is all interconnected. That's why we're all interconnected. So it's all from the same source. And within that universe, everything has an opposite. That's the duality, that's the polarity, that's the space where you get to play. That's the space where you get to do this dance with your child and what it is you need, they need, everyone needs within the moment, and it just sinks. But when you come into the polarity space from the singularity space of neutral, peace, zen, calm, pure love, it's a completely different experience than the fear-based love that we are conditioned into, that's on the opposite end of the scale. So we have fear down here and we have love up here, and they're both really the same vibration, but on just different levels and different weaved like slightly differently, but it's the same thing. It's still a fear-based love. It's still, if you do this, I will love you. If you do this for me, I will give you my love. If you do this, then you receive my love. That's the message we're shown when we're little. That's why we have the whole punishments and rewards system going on. It internalizes to us that if you do as you're told, then you get my love. If you don't do what I say, then you don't receive love. This means that you're unworthy. If you do as you're told, it means you're worthy. And that's not true. That's the whole entire system that we're trying to break away from. That's why I say we don't do punishments or rewards, because it doesn't work with children. If you want to really keep and honour their own inner self-esteem, their own resilience, and their own build-up of who it is they are within themselves. So once you come into that space of alignment, into that space of your own inner knowing and being in the present moment and present parenting, and then you move from that space when your child is having an emotion, that's when they really feel it deeply, and you feel it deeply too. That's the only space you can alchemize from. You cannot alchemize from any other space. If you come at someone from anger, and anger, it goes like this. The magnets repel. So you have to come at that energy from another energy that isn't that energy, and that's when you can meet them there in that space. And that's when they feel loved, that's when they feel heard, that's when they feel wanted, that's when they feel lovable, that's when they feel their self-esteem is on a high. That's when they know that their emotions are okay to feel and okay to process. So as adults, we often have that notion as well that, oh, don't cry, don't get angry, that's bad. As soon as you start labeling emotions as good or bad, you're in that mind construct fear space of what is good and what is bad. And emotions aren't bad, they're just an energy source, they're an energy field. It's just an energy moving through your body. And when you allow yourself to feel that and to process that and to express that in a safe way, then your own nervous system calms down, and it's like, oh, this is safe. This is safe now. When you start to bring in and alchemize in your own safe space, when you're feeling these emotions yourself, and you bring in the love for yourself and enter into that peace space of unconditional love, then you start to alchemize your own internal system from fear into unconditional love. And unconditional love is very, very different from conditional love, which is what I've just explained. Unconditional love is, you have this emotion and I still am solid and grounded and the same with you, because I still love you exactly the same, and I can still hold the space for you in this moment, because I know it doesn't mean anything. I know this behaviour doesn't mean anything about you or about me or about the situation, it just is. And I know sometimes when you're in that zone and you're in that space, and it's so quick and it's so easy to go back into the mind patterns, and this is why it's really, really so important to be self-aware and to recognise yourself and what is going on in those moments. And that's why it's so beautiful having children, because they continuously mirror it to you. It's like, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And when I say look at me, I mean like the pattern. I mean the conditioning. I mean everything that we're holding on to that if we just let go of and quantum shifted into this new space of experience and reality and being. When you allow that transformation to happen, it is then just magical, and everything gets to flow and everything gets to then be easier, and then you get to decide how you want to be in this moment, how you want to feel in this moment. And when emotions come up for you, it's like, look at me, look at me, look at me, and you can look at it without judgment. Without judgment. As soon as you start judging, you're back in the mind. When you look at it without judgment, you're from the outside space, looking at the thoughts, looking at the patterns, and you are in the soul space. That's who you are, is the soul inside, the consciousness that came from the singularity before the universe was created. That source, that singularity, that soul space interconnects every single one of us. And then we get into this advanced space of you are me and I am you. You're me and I am you. And this emotion that you're experiencing right now is not who you are. It's not you. It's the mind. And once you move into that advanced space, and that space is really beautiful, then it becomes even easier again, but then in ways more challenging, because then again it is like the deeper you go, the deeper you go, the deeper you go with this. But then the deeper you go with this, the more open you are, and the more open you are, and the more open you are. And the deeper you go with this, the more calm you are, and the more peaceful you are, and the more present you are. So really, when your child is displaying a behavior to you such as anger or well, let's just go with anger, because that's the main one, isn't it, that usually triggers us. That's the main one that usually gets us. That's the main one that usually moves our attention from whatever it is we're doing and onto them. So when they display a behaviour such as this that is so sharp and so you cannot ignore me, look at me, it's really an opening, it's an invitation to open more. It's an invitation into your heart. It's an invitation into your soul. So truly it really is nothing to do with them. It's nothing about them. It's all about you and your internal world. And in that process of moving into your own internal world and alchemizing it all in there and changing it all up and just being in the present moment, it changes everything for them too. and they feel it, they live and breathe off of your emotions. And yes, they are their own soul and their own body, and they have their own experience. They are so attuned to you, and they are so, when they come out as babies, they feel like you and them are one thing, and you are one thing. You come from the same source. It is one thing, and it's also two things. It's the same. It's one thing and two things happening at the same time, and that's why it's so mind-boggling, and that's why the mind can never figure it out, and it's just like continuously wants to try and work this out, but you never can. But the inner knowing knows. It's different. It's a completely different thing. So when you come at it from that space, it completely changes up the dynamic between you and your child. If you want to look at attachment in your own self and how that works, that is also a useful and helpful tool. I feel like when you if you are looking into attachment and recognizing when am I avoidant, when am I anxious, when am I like moving into the space of both, like that space I just mentioned. So sometimes it's like when you are saying, I want space, but I want you to hold me at the same time, that kind of thing. Recognizing when you are in those spaces, and recognizing when you're balanced too. Because the thing that we can easily do is label ourselves with, oh, I am this, I am that, I am that. And really it's in a moment I might feel that I am being that right now, or oh yeah, okay, I think I'm being avoidant right now. Okay, what do I need to move into my space here and come back into the soul space before I respond to that outside of whatever's going on there. And when you have an understanding of all of these, it can take you so far. But again, this is all like mind, form, structure, concepts. It's not the soul. The soul is deep in our knowing, and it's a vibration. When you enter into that space and that vibration with your child, then it's just bliss. It's just easy and it's free flowing. And so when they do have these emotions, it's more easy to hold the space because you are already holding the space within you. So really, if you feel like you cannot hold that space for them and it's too much and it's overwhelming, and you will notice this as well. So once you have a quantum shift into, okay, I can hold the space for them now, I feel completely in alignment with that, it's going really good, it's going really well. Here's what will start to happen, or if it hasn't already been happening, because if it's going in one area, it feeds into every area of your life. You'll start to notice it within your relationship if you haven't already. So then you might feel like, I need to feel held by my partner, and I don't feel held. And again, it's the same thing. It's exactly the same dynamic, except within the parenting role, you have to be the holder. You have to be the mother, whereas in the relationship role, you do not need to be the mother. Yes, sometimes you may have to hold space. It's just slightly different, but again, it's a very, very similar thing. It's very, very much the same kind of thing going on. So you'll notice that, and then you'll notice it within your own health and well-being and how much you're self-sourcing. And you'll notice it within your money, and you'll notice it within your friendships, and you'll notice it within your work and whatever it is that you have going on in your life. And when you begin to become more self-aware and you start noticing where this same pattern is like almost dead in one area of your life, it'll just come alive in the other areas, and it has probably always been there, but it's just starting to ignite. And it's just kind of like, oh, well, look at me here. Look at me here. Look at me in this space. Look at me from this space. Look at me from this mirror. Look at me from this angle. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And then when you look at it without judgment and just notice that it's a pattern, and that's it. You move back into the present moment. Or you can choose to dive deeper into that and really move into, okay, how do I want to look at this? Is this something that I need to address here? But just be careful in that you don't go into that space of I need healing, I need to be fixed, there's something wrong with me, because there's not. There's nothing wrong with you. You are the soul, you are pure, you are invincible, you cannot be touched, cannot be molded, cannot be changed in any way at all. You're simply the observer. What you're observing in terms of attachment, in terms of patterns, in terms of belief systems, is the mind, the ego, that space that we've all been conditioned into from birth. So when we're born, our brain is completely empty of information, and then we get it all poured in there, and we start believing what people tell us, and we just take that on because we're so open as babies. So as adults, when we want to come back into moving into the space of being open, so that we can hold the space openly and calmly and in a present state of being, then we have to really look at and recognize, one, we are not the patterns or the beliefs, we are not the ego, we are the soul, and two, when that is going on and how that feels for you inside. Because that will always bring up an emotion, and it's the emotion that we are often fearful of feeling. So once we recognize that, and then we can process that, and we can move back into that space of internal inner knowing and our own guidance system, then we can just feel and feed off our own emotions, and we recognize this is my intuition talking here, and this is my ego fear space. And it becomes more attuned, 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 more attuned. And your child's already attuned to that. So once you enter into that space of being more attuned and in that vibration, that's it, you've got it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will speak to you next time. Lots of love. Bye.